Hello, thank you for joining. My name is Joanna. I am a solutions engineer here at D2L, and today I'm going to be talking about data strategy. Starting out with some analytics out of the box, then we're going to touch on some data access APIs, and then we're going to finish with some learning outcome tracking and reporting that comes with that. So starting with an open Brightspace instance here, the first thing I want to talk about here is our data access. So I'm just going to go ahead and navigate to the Data Hub tool, which is an amazing tool here. The Data Hub tool comes equipped with over 70 different types of Brightspace reporting. These are all raw data sets that you can choose from. Really the standard rule for Brightspace is for any tool that you'd be really interacting with from either a student perspective, instructor, or even administrator, you'd have about 5 or 6 different reports that come with that. When we first started with our Data Hub tool, we were closer to 30 reports. We're actually approaching the 70 mark at this point. And that's because institutions will use different types of methods, more often than not Brightspace APIs, to actually harvest their own data and to actually share that knowledge with everybody else so they can take advantage of that as well. Okay. So we're not going to go through every single report here. There's about, again, 70 of them. It would take us a little bit too long. What I'm going to do is just go through some of the really popular ones and ones that we find we get a lot of virtual hugs and high fives for. Okay. So starting with some of these advanced data sets, right? So we've got our enrollments and withdrawals, very important stuff. Final grades is, of course, a very important aspect of as well. Instructor usage is a really great learning report here because especially if you're starting, a new learning management system, perhaps you have some training that you might want to use. A great area to investigate what you might need training on or what instructors are kind of doing is that instructor usage reports. Perhaps we have some instructors that are not using the discussions tool or not using our, release conditions or intelligent agents, or some of the more learning outcome tools, things like that. We can very much just dive into our instructor usage report, see kind of where the discrepancies are, and use some of that training that we have to fill in those gaps. Another really great report here is the learner usage report. Very similar to our instructor usage, except we're focusing on our learners or students. Maybe we want to see what the login trends are. Are they participating in social aspects like discussions or participating in assignments? We can really get a great understanding of the learner usage, instructor usage within the Data Hub tool as well. Okay, so again, keeping in mind that these are all raw data sets. They come out as a nice CSV standard format that you can use to import to your own business intelligence tool or aggregate some of these reports to get some of that information to really start making sense. Again, we really do advocate that you use your own data however you like. The data access is really open. We don't claim any sort of ownership over your data. Whatever you want to do, however you want to deal with that is entirely up to you and your institution. Having said that, and touching briefly again on those APIs, you can use APIs to create your own ad hoc reporting. Kind of choosing what information to pick up what time is again entirely up to you. We do constantly add reports to our Data Hub tool, again, based on those APIs that other institutions have used. Therefore, we have a nice complete set of data here that you can kind of use and go through as well. Again, and then should you have a specific need or a report that you'd want to create yourself, you can very much use those Brightspace open APIs to create those reports yourself. We do have a specific ask here about learning outcomes tracking and reporting. Now, before we get into that, again, I want to make sure that you do have access to the Data Hub repository. If you navigate to the Brightspace community at community.brightspace.com, you can actually search for the Data Hub tool here as well using our Brightspace community search bar, and you can actually get a great understanding of what each and every single one of these reports does and get a nice understanding of what you can do with the APIs at your own level as well. Okay, so again, I don't want to spend too much time going over every single report here because that would take probably a majority of our time together. But again, for every really tool that you're using, whether it's attendance or checklists or those competency structures or objectives, down to discussions and even surveys, we have about 5 or 6 different reports that you can pick from each specific tool. Okay. Perfect. Now, diving into a little bit more of that learning outcome tracking and reporting, you're definitely going to become very familiar with our competencies tool. As you can see, the competencies tool within the Brightspace platform allows you to create competencies and learning objectives based on kind of a little bit of a category formula where we have the competency, and into the competency tie in the learning objectives. As you can see, I have what we would call program specific competency set up, but I also have institutional skills, right? So things that learners have to do no matter what kind of course or department you are into. Just as an institution, we need to be able to complete some of these competencies, right? So using that as an example, we have our analytical reading competency, and within that, we have our learning objectives. So as soon as these two learning objectives are met, that will tie into that learning or analytical reading competency that will then tie into those institutional skills, right? So as long as learners meet both of these or outcomes, they will receive this competency. So yeah, that's just a standard kind of way to have or get an example of what a competency structure can look like. But we want to talk about our outcome tracking and reporting. So we offer tracking again also at the course level, but also at the institutional level. So I'm just going to navigate to my English course here, and I'm going to jump into my class progress area. Now, this is a great tool at the course level for our instructors so they can maybe get a good understanding of what's happening within their course specific to those objectives. Okay, so as you can see here, we have a nice high-level overview of our course, different key performance indicators, perhaps based on content completed, logins, objectives, and the grades. If you navigate to your settings area, you can actually replace any one of these key performance indicators based on something else. Perhaps you're not interested in login history for your specific course. You can actually select replace and pick from a different set amount of key performance indicators for your specific environment. Perhaps your course is a little bit more discussion heavy, so we can have that discussion there instead of the logins, right? So I would really want to make sure that my students are participating in their discussions, and it's easier for me to see that right off the bat. Okay. But in terms of competencies and learning outcomes and tracking that at the course level, as you can see, there is an objectives area here that I have set up because, again, objectives and learning outcomes are important within this specific course. I want to make sure people are meeting them. And more importantly, I want to know when they're not meeting them, right? So as you can see here, Marcus and Michael are not doing great on their objectives. And again, these reports are actionable. I can click on these, I can dive in a little bit deeper and actually see, again, at the course level, for Marcus, what he hasn't started, right? What's in progress, what's past, or maybe what needs remediation as well, right? So I know that these learning objectives are not being met, therefore he will not be meeting his competency. Again, at the course level, this is great for me as an instructor because I can at any point send an email to Marcus or send him an instant message and notify him of that. Again, at the course level, this is very useful for an instructor's perspective, okay? But more likely than not, most institutions have a need very similar to this, but at the institutional level. Again, that ties it perfectly back to that data access conversation we started with within our Data Hub tool. There is a specific report that you can take advantage of for this instance where we're tracking those learning outcomes or objectives, but at the institutional level. And the one I want to bring your attention here to is the Chloe report. So the second data set here within the Brightspace platform, you have an option to dive into a course learning evaluation data set that returns the learner's outcomes for required competencies, right? So if you were to run this report, you can specifically pick what the org unit ID is, and that's just a unique identifying number that addresses your specific course or your department. And you can run these reports at any time. You can select what roles are included in that. Again, so it gives you some freedom there. And again, pointing out the fact that these are raw CSV data reports. Okay. Going back to the Brightspace community here, we actually provide you with a lot of really beautiful templates that you can use for your specific data sets. So, keeping that Chloe report in mind, we actually provide you with a Chloe data extract template. Again, Chloe stands for that course learning outcome evaluation data set. And once you download this specific template from the Brightspace platform or the Brightspace community here, you have access to a few steps that you have to take that you can just run this report from the Brightspace platform from the data hub. You would take the Chloe report. Once that's done, you would automatically extract it for you. And then you would just paste that data into the paste section of this specific template. Now, the way I got there is just using the pages to navigate. If you can see my cursor moving on the bottom page here, we have the instructions. And then this is where you would copy and paste that report into that you just created. You would get a few usage notes and considerations, right, that you might want to kind of get a clarification on, like all learners must have a defined ORD ID. It's kind of letting you know what you need and what you need to have set up ahead of time, right? So there's a few things we want to make sure that we have, and it also tells you how it works, right? So it would be pretty much triggered by an alignment of an activity to a learning objectives with a defined achievement threshold, right? So we got to, again, have those competencies set up in the first place and make sure that they're aligned to their different achievements, okay? And the setup process is, again, super easy. Defines of 3 steps. So you align the activity to a learning objective, you add an assessment, and then you define an achievement threshold, right? Whether it's a rubric, whether it's a pass or fail, whether it's a letter grade, it's really up to you. Okay. Next page will be ways that you can filter and recalculate things. Then you get a nice course summary of all the different competencies and how they've been achieved, right? Whether it's the outcome, the average grade, standard deviation, and things like that. Okay. So again, we're not going to go through every single one of these tabs, but there's quite a few here that I want to bring your attention to. So the total student grades tab is a great thing to consider as you're going through your course learning evaluation. Some of the outcome grade summaries, the activity summary. You can have evaluations by outcome here, and then you can compare it to different, whether distinguished, basic, proficient. NA usually means not available for not completed, right? So again, a great template to use in comparison with the Chloe report here, which is our course learning outcome evaluation data set. So these tools are, again, very, very strong in correlation to that competencies page where we can have outcomes and competency structures built on specific courses or across the organization, tied in with our specific data sets here for the Chloe learning evaluation. If we scroll down a little bit further, there's also a competency section here where we have competency activities, the log, the result, the objectives, what the structure is like, right? So we can have everything kind of set out for us based on what information we're looking for. And also, if we don't see anything here that we're interested in, we can use those Brightspace APIs to create those calls and to harvest that information for us. Again, want to really finish hard here on knowing that the Brightspace community is a great place to learn or find out more about either the Chloe data set. You'll notice if I just type in Data Hub here, I'll be brought to a page where we can maybe grab into the administrative guide, or we can maybe jump into an instructor guide. But as you can see, there's a lot of really great information here for anyone. All you have to kind of do is search for the topic you're interested in. And again, even the second one is to use APIs. There's all great kinds of walkthroughs that you can use within the community to really make sure that you're taking full advantage of the platform itself. But for the time being, I'm just going to say thank you for joining. Again, today we covered the data strategy in terms of analytics out of the box using the Data Access Data Hub tool. We talked about using APIs to create our own ad hoc reporting. And then we finished off with learning outcome tracking and reporting at the course level, but also institutionally. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out, and thanks for joining.